Shalom, it's Rabbi David Barron with my weekly Torah Talk. I hope you send this out to family and friends so more people can be inspired by lessons we take from the Torah, that living document that is divinely given and that gives us light on how to live, direction on living, and making the best life for ourselves and those around us that we cherish. By the way, here in the synagogue, we'll be holding our next Shabbat service on November 25th at 7:30 p.m. That's open to all. If you'd like to come to the dinner at 6 o'clock beforehand, you must make a reservation. So go to templeofthearts.org for information about that and all of our exciting events here at the Temple of the Arts. We welcome you to each and every one of them. This week's Torah portion is the portion of Vayera, and it's the story of the life of Abraham. And in the opening, three angels appear to Abraham. They come walking through the desert. And if you look at this very interesting painting by the artist Marc Chagall, you'll see the three angels sitting at an outdoor table and dining with Abraham. But of course, they're not dining because they're angels and they couldn't consume any food. The Hebrew word malach or malachim doesn't just mean angel, it means messenger, because angels conveyed or brought us a message from the divine or a message from the universe. And many of us are not attuned to receiving messages, and they're often so important. They tell us about foretelling events or tell us about important parts of our lives that determine what events might occur. And in the case of these three angels, they had come to inform Abraham that even though his wife was in her 90s and he was way up in years, that she would conceive and have a child, because Abraham and Sarah were childless, and he so much wanted a child with his wife, Sarah. And so they brought this message, this joyous message. In fact, Sarah thought it was absurd at her age, and she laughed, and ultimately they named the child Isaac, which means laughter. But the story has another interesting component to it. Abraham was renowned for many things. The two things he was probably very much famous for, if not others as well, was his hospitality. He had a tent with 4 entrances, one on each side, north, east, west, south, so that any stranger coming through the desert would be welcomed into his tent and fed and given water and water to clean themselves and water to drink in the desert. This was the nature of Abraham, the nature of hachnasat orchim, which is the Hebrew word for welcoming guests, hospitality. And the way he welcomed the guests is the interesting point. The rabbis in their commentary on the words describing Abraham's welcoming of the guests show that he did so with tremendous speed and excitement and enthusiasm. And when we perform a deed of kindness, a mitzvah, when we perform a deed, it should be done with wholeheartedness and with enthusiasm and with intention. And in fact, when we talk about prayer, some people mumble through 100 prayers, and in Jewish tradition we have this expression, one prayer said with kavanah, with intention and sincerity, is more valuable than 100 prayers that are mumbled through. So it's what you invest in the act itself, not just the act itself. There's an interesting study that psychologists have done recently about people who are older and who have chronic illnesses like arthritis or other issues, other diseases. And they did a study and they found that people, a control group with people who had that frailty or that problem or that issue, when they stepped outside of themselves and did something for someone else, when they volunteered, for example, that the speed at which they walked and ascended stairs was much greater than the rest of the group, which means when you step outside of yourself, you're able to go into a different dimension of thought, and that shapes your reality. So stepping outside of ourselves with focus, with intention, with desire to do the deed. And our rabbis tell us the reward for the mitzvah is the mitzvah itself. Sechar mitzvah, mitzvah. The reward for the mitzvah is just performing it with a full heart, with intention, with desire to be of service. Let's think about that when we welcome guests into our home, that we do it in the Abrahamic tradition, wholeheartedly, enthusiastically. And I know sometimes that strains us because maybe we've been welcoming many people into our home, but greeting each person with a certain kind of countenance and presence, greeting individuals who you are opening your home to with enthusiasm and positivity goes a long, long way. This is one of the important lessons, of which there are many in this week's rich Torah reading, the portion of Vayera. I hope we take it into practice in our own personal lives. We hear the messengers who come to deliver a message to us. We keep an open mind, and we welcome enthusiastically people into our lives and into our homes on this life journey. I hope you'll take that to heart on this Shabbat, and I wish each and every one of you Shabbat Shalom. We're going to recite the Kaddish in a moment, but first I want to read the names of those who passed during this month of November, the Yortzeit names. And among them are Francis Edelman Swaney, Tilly Alpert, Betty Elgart Astor, Ellen Barron, Irving Belafsky, Rose Bennett, Richard Bershon, Sanford Binkoff, Linda Bloom, Natalie Bloom, Bernard Blumenthal, Leonard Kaplan, Ronnie Chasen, Eugene Kofsky, Michael Englander, Eleanor Fenster, Jack Flexer, Rachel Friedman, Emmanuel First, Daniel Gershon, Judith Gold, Louis Goldstein, Jesse Gross, Martin Hyman, Samuel Kagan, David Carney, Grace Love, Rachel Lubaki, Sidney Martin, Stuart Milberg, Erwin Oken, Harold Ornstein, Jean Parks, Francis Pollock, Yitzhak Poltisker, Nathan Raff, Dr. Bernard Rothman, Harvey Saferstein, Abraham Schiff, Milton Saferstein, Edward Shapiro, Evelyn Ship, Frida Silverberg, Robert Stern, Ruth Waldorf, and Hilda Zeifer. We remember them with love as we recite the words of the mourner's Kaddish prayer. You can repeat it after me. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah Bi'alma divra chirutei V'yamlich malchutei B'chayei uvyom echon Uvchayei dechol bet Yisrael Bagala uvizman koriv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mivarach Li'alam Ulalmei Almaya. Magnified and sanctified be God's great name throughout this world, which God governs according to his will. May his kingdom be established in our lifetime and in the lifetime of the house of Israel, and let us say, Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. May God, who creates peace in the heavens above, grant peace and comfort to all who mourn, to all Israel, to all mankind. Amen.